Thank you for joining today's mental health webinar in recognition of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. On behalf of the 2.1 million Americans living with limb loss and limb difference and the 28 million who are at risk for an amputation, the Amputee Coalition recognizes the great importance of addressing not only the physical health of our community, but also the mental health. We know that there's a correlation between mental health and physical health and a link to a sedentary lifestyle with depression. We've listened to the voices of our community and we've heard through their experience that many feel isolated physically in many communities, which can have an impact on a person's physical and emotional well-being. Today's webinar will highlight the importance of a healthy mindset and maintaining a healthy lifestyle in order to achieve a thriving state throughout the limb loss and limb difference journey. By the end of this webinar, participants will have an increased knowledge of the correlation of exercise and mental health. You'll gain a better understanding of the value of support from your medical care teams, coaches, peers, and you'll learn about the importance of having access to mental health and well-being programs, resources, and services that are specific and unique to the limb loss and limb difference community. The Amputee Coalition is dedicated to enhancing the quality of life for individuals and their support networks while striving to improve patient care as well as preventing limb loss. Through our National Limb Loss Resource Center, we provide comprehensive, evidence-based, unbiased information, services, and peer support. We offer mental health resources, including fact sheets and emotional well-being programs, such as our PALS program, which is promoting amputee life skills, and our Improving Wellbeing program in conjunction with our collaboration with Johns Hopkins. The heart of our peer support programs is ensuring that no one feels alone throughout their journey, and we firmly believe that support can come in many forms and can make a difference in rehabilitation and recovery. The Coalition offers peer support through the formation of registered support groups throughout the country, as well as virtually, through our healthcare partnerships, our youth camp, and our certified peer visitor program where volunteers provide one-on-one peer support. Through meaningful collaborations with our partnership with the VA and Department of Defense, we also help ensure that our veterans and wounded service members can gain access to care and support that they need. On this slide, there is a direct link to where all of these mental health related resources are, and we'll be sure to put this in the chat for the attendees today. We're honored to collaborate on this mental health webinar with Owen Roberts, who is a two-time Paralympian, Tedx speaker, an empowerment coach, the host of the Mindset Athlete podcast, and the creator of the AMP method. We're so grateful that you're here in support of our community. We also want to make sure that the attendees can engage with you throughout the chat, as well as post questions in the Q&A tab. We just want to make sure that we save time at the end of the presentation for James to engage with you live for those that want to come up on the screen and ask specific questions or share your story. And James, thanks again for being a part of this. You're all the way in Great Britain. It's after work hours for you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Please take it away.
That's my absolute pleasure. And thank you again for allowing me to do this presentation this month. Obviously, you're not alone. Did you actually know that 1 in 10 adults in the US alone experience with mental health issues? Something I didn't know until putting this presentation together. And 1 in 25 adults experience serious mental health. So it gives you a breakdown based on ethnicity, Asian, Black, Hispanic, Latino, and the greater you go into it in terms of sexuality, obviously is going to play a problem with people's mental health because of the perception of what other people think, how it's going to be perceived. And obviously you are your own worst critic. Doesn't matter if you're able-bodied, disabled, you're going to look to find fault in anything. So for looking at mental health as an illness is something that I would probably not go as far as that, because it's a condition. It obviously you got to be aware of the severity of it, and it's nothing, and there's no harm for asking for help because you're willing to put into place that you know that there's an issue, and I would like to have a better understanding and try to resolve that. So it's no stigma and to go and seek out help, because obviously that's the first port of call that you need to do, is try to get the support that you need. Can you go to the next slide, Nicole? Obviously these are my achievements, and given all those achievements, you wouldn't think I would have suffered with mental health, would you? Given all of those successes of going to 2 Paralympics, going to multiple World Championships, being national record holder, I came unstuck when, or it was made aware to myself back in 2018. I had a massive panic attack when I was working in the educational sector, and I thought I was having a heart attack or having a stroke, because I'd never face that sort of stress from a workplace environment. I'd thought that I'd lost my way in terms of I set off my entire life to be successful in sport, and now it was over. And I had somebody say, "Oh, this is going to be the best part of your life." The year earlier, I was like, for me, that's the end of the world. I've already experienced this. So me being 26, 27 years old, I thought my life was over, because it was like, well, what's the point of my worth? I was put into question my worth, my existence. It's like, what's the point? I didn't go as far as what's the point in living. I'd always think about the impact it would have on friends and family if I was to do something more serious. So I would never get to beyond maybe suicidal thoughts. And for me, it was a wake-up call, because I was neglecting my health. I was neglecting my eating habits were poor, and I was just eating to survive in that toxic environment. So you wouldn't have thought me being me, have everything together, and it was far from it. I was lost. I had no clear, I call these kind of guru words, but purpose or why. I knew what I stood for when I was athletic and was doing very, very well. But obviously when things come unstuck, there was nobody there, and being a man, I thought I could do it myself. And it took probably family seeing the heartache they were going through of me neglecting. I'd not bathe and things like that, and the pressure it was putting them under. I thought, well, I don't like what it's doing to them. I need to go out and seek support. I need to put my ego to one side and go and get the support and seek the help that I needed. And obviously my practice, surgery or general practitioners, they were willing to do it, to my surprise, not go down the medical route, the medication route straight away. They wanted to do it. Let's go down the holistic approach first, and then if that doesn't work, obviously we'll look to do the medication. And at that particular time, I was suffering with anxiety, and for me to say that to the audience today, to say that I'd gone so far in the other direction of being lacking in confidence, I was not self-assured, to the individual I was when I was in sport, it's like night and day. So if you go to the next slide, Nicole, please. If we rewind back to, obviously, so you've got some rapport. I was actually born with my disabilities. I've got limb difference. So I've probably been fighting this battle internally as long as I can remember, in terms of either trying to prove to myself that I can do it, to prove to other people that I'm just as good, to the point of, and I had a thought about this just yesterday, of the amount of times I've been trying to prove something to myself or to other people just to fit in, just to be in my sort of what I would term normal and have a easy life in comparison to my able-bodied peers. And the example that came to mind when I was thinking about that was back to the days when I was in the Cub Scouts, and I was going from the Webelos to the Boy Scouts, and for us it was like a crossover from going from a kid to becoming a young adult. So it was a physical bridge, and I was given the choice of I could either walk on the ground and make the crossover or do across the bridge. Obviously, you're going to know where I'm going to go with this, just because having the disability, you've got that chip on your shoulder a little bit. I had to do it like everybody else, and it got me thinking of, yes, sport has given me an outlet to create resilience and to build up my confidence. But however, this was my undoing, obviously, in later life, back to the story in 2018, because I became two different people. I was very much shy, timid, not very confident. I sure wouldn't have been doing this when I was a kid. I would steer away from public speaking to save my life. But in sport, I was this highly confident, self-assured individual. So it's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde. I was two different people. But where this has become a problem in later life is I've created a suit of armor. I've created such a figure to I can't be relatable. I can't show vulnerability. And once I move away from sport, I lose my way, because I had a purpose. I know what my why is. I've spent my entire career trying to get to the pinnacle of what disabled sport is, and it's the Paralympics. That I've done everything. I've ticked everything off. What's there to do now? And I'd obviously started a coaching business. Didn't work out. I can take some of the responsibility now, because most of it is my fault. But family obviously wanted the best intention for me, and said, "Oh, you need to go back into the real world and get a 9 to 5 job." So that's why I went into the teaching sector. And I would say, rightly or wrongly, it's probably good in both accounts for that. But having that suit of armor and not be willing to let people come in was very challenging. Anything that was I needed to do, it was very much, I was a yes man. What can I do to service others at my own expense? So it took probably hitting rock bottom of having a mental health issue to kind of go, okay, hang on a second. Because the first day I started on the job, I saw kids going to school with chocolate bars. And I went, well, I can't judge the kids. I can't judge the environment, because if they don't know any better, they don't know any better. But obviously I molded myself to that environment, and I conformed, as opposed to going, okay, hang on a second, these are my core beliefs. This is what I've been doing since as early as I can remember, from maybe even walking, as health has been very important to me. And set those boundaries to kind of go, well, I need to look after myself. I need to look at what I'm eating. Exercise needs to be very at the forefront of, even if I'm tired at the end of the day, I need to do some sort of mobility. But obviously I lost sight of that, and then my eating habits changed, and then I just did anything to survive. So I was going for candy bars, Doritos, you name it, anything that I could come across, just to fill that void, to get any energy, just to get me through it wasn't even a 9 to 5 job, but between the school hours of, say, 8:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. So if you go to the next slide, my sense of when mental health really started to occur was probably around middle school, and that's obviously a reflection now, 20-something years later, to kind of go, okay, because of the schooling and I was a part of, be it both my parents were in the military, so I grew up overseas from the UK, so I grew up in Belgium. I spent from the age of 3 years old until I was 15, so just before 9th grade, I had to redo 8th grade. And be it because of how I felt myself. Pretty much I had to do, I can't remember how many exams I had about almost like 10 exams I had to resit. I went into my shell because I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to leave the house. And my mum could kind of see that I was spiraling. I would say now, on reflection, that's depression. It was, I'd kind of gone, well, I'm never going to get out of this thing. I'm not, there's no way on earth I'm going to be able to pass 10 exams all in one go. And obviously I didn't. And then had to do the year over again. That year was very easy because obviously I'd seen most of the stuff before. Past that year, I ended up having to resit one exam. And I thought, well, here we go again. I've got one exam to sit. Did the coursework that the teacher had assigned me. So this was French, the only exam I had to sit the following year. And I thought I'd be coming to the classroom, sit down, and I'd be in that day we dictated to, and you had to do verbatim what the teacher was telling you word for word. And to my surprise, that second year, he said, nope, you've done all the work that you have to, go and enjoy your summer. So I was relieved, and I probably owe a lot to that teacher because he gave me a little bit of self-belief to kind of go, okay. But what my mom didn't want me to do is to be in that same system and to be in that same situation time in, time out. Obviously for her that would be amounts of stress because you don't want your kids to go through duress. So I switched schools and went to obviously the American school, which actually was backed onto each other, the schools. And for me, that was probably the saving grace that I needed, that change of environment. It was like night and day in terms of the American school was, if you want to put in the extra credit, that's up to you. You're going to get rewarded for it. So for me, to get more than 100%, it kind of went, well, I like this. I'm going to put in more work and more work and work. And the only blemish on that was obviously I was struggling to come to terms with my disability at that age. I think I was about my sophomore junior year in high school, where I wouldn't wear shorts in this time of the year, and it was something I was portraying into other people's minds of all people going to judge me slightly different because I'm different. And then I had like this epiphany moment where I went, well, I don't care what people think. I'm the one who's suffering with the physical element of this. Something's got to give. Okay, this is an adversity moment, but for me it was like, it's got to change. So that's probably the adversity I faced in high school. But if we rewind back to middle school, I had one of my teachers in the Belgian system say you wouldn't amount to anything. Sorry. That still bothers me to this day, occasionally, because it's like, well, is that statement true? Do I believe it? And then obviously when you're having bad days, you kind of go, well, is he right? And as a 13, 14-year-old, you hear that on a routine basis. Teachers can't do this nowadays, but obviously 20 years ago, what his motives were, I'd love to find out, of trying to be good cop, bad cop, so for some people that's going to work because they're going to try and prove him wrong. For me, it was an undoing, and obviously I suffered with mental health as a result of it in the summer, because it's like, well, is he right? Am I not capable academically? And then obviously the results speak for themselves, and then you second guess yourself in every which way. However, obviously my saving grace and my outlet was my sport, because it gave me, as I said earlier, the resilience and the confidence. So in that environment, I was very self-assured. I was like, I'm not as confident as I am today, but it gave me that outlet to kind of go, well, okay, despite me being disabled, and I competed in swimming, I'm going to use it as my strength. I started swimming butterfly at 12. Everybody copied me after that. And we had a discussion about this 2 years ago with my mum about it. Well, did you feel in awe of people copying? It's like, I could care less at that age. It's like, if they want to copy me, and it doesn't work out for them, hey, they need to maybe look themselves in the mirror. But maybe now it's in a sense of empowerment because people want to follow in your lead and then go from there. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Nicole. Obviously, where well-being and mental health go together is there was a study done that correlates strongly that exercise gives resilience, and obviously during the pandemic they looked at such a study as a mechanism to moderate resilience. So why I say it massively correlates is I think having the disability and being very adaptable anyway is going to create resilience, because it doesn't matter if you look at YouTube, apps, fitness industry as a whole, most of the things are collated for obviously people that got 2 legs or 2 arms, and they've got a plethora of programs that they can chop and change. Whereas we have been, and I say we've been able to be resilient from the get-go, because to overcome, be it having the impairment through a traumatic experience, being born with it, you've got, you could say, a chip on your shoulder. You've got a resilience anyway of, okay, I've got to prove it to myself that I'm capable of doing this. I've got to prove it to other people that I'm more than capable of looking after myself. So you've got that resilience in probably spades and bucket loads than you would probably envision to be the case. And the relationship between exercise is supported by this study. It's obviously, mental health has been put to the forefront because of COVID-19, because more and more people are struggling with the sleep, with am I going to have a job? And obviously at the very beginning of the pandemic, that was people's salvation of, I need to get outside, and this is one way I'm going to be able to do that, to be able to escape the severity of whatever lockdown it was. This is going to be, but I obviously saw a tail off of that. I said it can't last because people are doing it for the wrong reasons. And the effect of exercise on resilience is it from that study itself, it creates an effect of, obviously it's a drug. It's an addictive. The more that you do something that gives you pleasure, gives you happiness, you're going to do more of it. And obviously the issue with mental health is if I put it in simplicity, where obviously the slide in front of me talked about cortisol. That's stress level. So if you've got a prolonged level of stress, your body is under a lot of duress. So everybody's probably heard of the fight or flight response. Your body's going to react in one or two ways. It's actually 1 or 3 ways. You're either going to stand and fight, because we're going to have that caveman mentality. We're going to run away and come back another day, or you freeze and you can't. You're like an immovable object. You're not able to do anything. And the damage of that long term is obviously mental health. And because of the if you looked at it from a perspective of, if we focused on a problem, you can't deviate from that. This problem is the be all and end all, and anything outside of that, it's almost like you've got blinkers on. The outside world doesn't exist, and you just fixate on that more and more and more, and that just creates more and more stress. So it's like a vicious circle that you can't get out of. So it has an effect on the brain of creating long-term memory loss. So and this actually happened to me at the beginning of COVID. If I was to put something down, my long-term memory wasn't affected. It was my short-term memory. If I put my phone down somewhere, I don't remember where I put it. And obviously, the long-term memory is how you create long-term success. Is you repeatedly do something over and over again, and it gets stored. It's like an archive. So that has a knock-on effect on your long-term memory. It also has your can't say the word, prefrontal cortex for attention, focus, and executing functions. So your coordination is going to be impaired. You can't focus on things for a set period of time. You lose focus, you lose interest, you lose a drive. So you will hear people say that I can't be asked, and that's obviously you're steering down depression in that sense, because you don't really, what's the point in doing that? There is effects on obviously attention from the opposite way that I encountered of it. I can't focus on anything else. If I try to watch the TV, it goes back to the pain of it, centers you to the point of you're on this vicious loop of pain, and the more that you feed the negativity, the more that it's going to come up. And obviously the opposite is the same case. If you live and breathe things that bring you joy, more and more things happen in that sense. And that is an article in the Forbes magazine this year. In a healthy brain and in the short term, this is reversible. That's why health and well-being is so important, because the more that you look to exercise, and we're going to cover this in the next slide, the better that you can do the baby steps to unraveling some of the pain that you've caused. Obviously, the downside of this, and I'll use from personal experience, is in 2019 I thought I was fixed. I don't have anxiety issues anymore, and I stopped doing the work. Because the brain is a muscle, you have to keep doing the work, and it's the acceptance of moving away from that stigma of you've got an illness, you've got depression, you've got anxiety, you've got some sort of mental condition, and kind of going, well, it's a part of me, it's who I am. You might not really want to really embrace it, but if you can accept it, things become a lot easier from a mental well-being perspective, because you're not trying to fight the condition anymore. You're kind of embracing it and moving with it. And obviously the easier, I'm not saying it's easy to do, because I was told off for this because I was trying to find any which solution I could find under the sun. It didn't matter if it was a resource, program, if one didn't work, let's jump to the next one. And obviously the health star said to me, James, you can't do that. If one technique doesn't work, you can't just jump from one to and trying to get fixed. Obviously, me being me, I wanted to be back to what I said call normal. But when I started to actually embrace, well, okay, you've got a condition of being depressed or anxiety. The anxiety, it didn't bother me as much, because you need anxiety to do things, just to cross the road. But obviously the depression aspect has got a stigma of it, because of the years and years and probably decades of people kind of going, well, if you got some sort of problem, you're going to go to a mental asylum. So it's from a science perspective, it's only now looking at the progressive nature of mental health, and what can we do for people can avoid it, can obviously coexist with it, and then obviously move on with their lives, versus okay, the negatives of said stigma. So if you can move on to the next slide, Nicole. These are the 10 science-based steps to help with mental health. Obviously, meditation is number one. It limits cortisol by 25%. So and meditation is broader term. So if you've got apps, so you've got Headspace, Brain FM, Calm. If you went into Play Store or Apple's, you'd probably find more. And it allows you to obviously reduce your mind from wandering, or to have what I had of focusing on a problem and not let you escape it, of just magnifying it and magnifying it and magnifying it. And it obviously keeps you on task at work. So this is something that I still use today, be if it is to de-stress from the working day, to give myself 10-15 minutes to step away from my own baggage in my own personal life, or from a consultation from another individual that what they've told me is weighed heavily on me. I need to go away and decompress before I obviously speak to another person. So this is something that is pretty much part and parcel in my day-to-day life now, of okay, I deviated from back in 2018 because I thought I was fixed. I've gone back to some sort of normality, and obviously I can now say 4 years on that was my undoing because I didn't do the work. Whereas I've come to embrace there's nothing wrong with meditation. Okay, my perception as an athlete was people sitting in a corner humming to themselves. Not a very good perception to have because it's judgmental. Whereas it could be guided meditation, it could be, of course, you've got so many to choose from: water, the waves, to unguided, which is very difficult to start off with. So I would say start guided and then move on, and then find something that works with you. I will do it just to stay focused on it. If I've got a task that's going to take me more than 60 minutes, I'll use that, and I completely forget about the outside world. I'm 100% focused on that. And then people will say, well, how do you stay so focused? That's one of the ways. I will do it with music as well. The second one is 4 brain foods that promote mindful productivity or career health. Is protein, omega-3 fatty acids, which is either through supplementation or whitefish, and oily fish such as salmon, mackerel. We could go into to great depths. If you aren't a fish eater, obviously you're gonna have to go down the supplement route. If you're doing it for the ethical reasons, you're looking to do, I can't remember what the substance is. Oh, there's another alternative, and I can't remember what it's called. I'll come back to that. But B vitamins, so B2, 6, 12, and then obviously vitamin D. So vitamin D is sunlight. Us being in the northern hemisphere, that's not a problem for the next about 5 to 6 months, because we're gonna get optimum daylight. So if you can get outside as much as possible, obviously you feel amazing when you're in the sunshine. Vitamin D is more important between the months of October and March, because obviously the southern hemisphere's got the sunlight. And if I bring race into it, so be it mixed race, darker skin, this is going to be even more important, because obviously due to the nature of the skin color, we don't absorb sunlight as well as somebody who's white. So this is very much important for, say, somebody that's Asian, black, to look at, maybe even going to a doctor to find out, am I deficient in vitamin D? So then you know, as I need to do even more of this in especially October through March, but then the rest of the year as well. Step 3 is regular exercise, and we're going to go on to what regular exercise is on the next slide. Such as brisk walking recalibrates a fatigued brain, reduces your risk of developing anxiety by 60%. And this is a Swedish study that was over a 20-year period and did about 400,000 people. So it's, I did a science degree. That's pretty much a bang-on perfect study. So in terms of what you would constitute as regular exercise, we'll go on the next slide. Positive self-talk can have enormous amounts of an impression on a catastrophic mind chatter. So be it a negative self-talk would be obviously what a catastrophic. So if you're always putting yourself down, giving yourself criticism around the people that are always moaning, obviously you're going to have a knock-on effect on your mental well-being, because if you're always hearing somebody that's whining, you're going to eventually succumb to that. So it's the rule of the people that you surround by 5 people. So the people that you surround yourself with, they're negative, obviously you're going to start to behave in that same way. So this could be caused by work stress, it could be prosthetic issues, the list is endless, blisters, you name it, in terms of having a negative impact of, why me, why is this happening to me. Obviously there's an element of self-doubt that's creeping in, and by creating positive self-talk, that could be through listening to mantras, it could be affirmations, it could be your own, in terms of saying this is who I am, and those obviously counteract those negative thoughts and beliefs. The 5th one is obviously sleep deprivation. So this is what happened to me at the beginning of COVID. I went down to, I think in the end I was sleeping about 3 hours a night. I don't know how I was up, but I was still working in the daytime, and I don't know how I operated. Obviously leads to brain stress, and obviously ample sleep is both restorative, and then obviously it's your body's way of recovering. So it's processing everything that's gone before it throughout the day. So it's almost like somebody sorting out the laundry, for argument's sake, folding away, putting away things. So it's allowing your body to recover physically, but your brain is processing all of your day into like categories, as like what you need to keep long term, what do we need to remember, what do we need to do to be able to be more productive today, days on end. But if obviously you're not sleeping properly, your body's not able to recover. It is always on high alert. I can just look at videos from 2020 to kind of go, well, okay, you're not sleeping very well. My face was very, very thin. So your body is pretty much using itself as a fuel to just keep going. But obviously, why it's paramount to get proper, what I would call sleep hygiene, is to inhibit obviously these things from happening. It's your way to recover from obviously exercise. It's your way to get the proper nutrients into your body, and obviously it's a sense to that's your space to rest and recover. So if you can move to the next slide, please. Number 6 is micro breaks, and I had a conversation with somebody on a consultation about this. I won't name the person for just to keep them anonymity, but obviously breaking up the day. So if you're working and you're going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, you don't have a space to decompress. You pretty much, if I was to ask you to tell me what happened in every of those meetings, you'd probably get mixed up with which one was which. And it's only a case of 5 minutes, and this was a video that I'd seen on TikTok originally, and then I went and did some investigating, and I found the original one. And it is a psychology professor talking about it in relation to study of, if you were to sit down and study for an hour and a half, your mind's going to wander. Not everybody is, but if I just use myself, that's what's going to happen. So he said if you broke it up into 30-minute chunks and took 5-minute breaks of, you study for 30 minutes and you go away and do 5 minutes, that something that was going to bring you pleasure and going to be great delight, obviously you're going to want to come back and do that, because you got to do something that you did. And obviously this mitigates brain fatigue and keeps your brain rested. So it allows you to decompress, and it would allow you to actually take stock of what you've discussed in a meeting. Maybe you write down some notes and jots, and then you've got some counterpoints to go, well, based on what X has said, this is Y, and then obviously you can come to Z conclusion. Number 7 is mindful abdominal breathing. Most people, me included, when I'm stressed, will breathe from the shoulders. So you'll be breathing that way. And if you consciously look at that, and to be able to see the difference. The abdominal breathing, other terms is called diaphragm breathing. So you breathe that way. So you breathe in and out. One way to do this and incorporating the meditation for number one is to lie down and to put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach, so you can actually feel how you're breathing and have an awareness and concentration on that specific breathing habit. It obviously keeps your brain sharp because you're focusing on one specific task. Everything else eventually goes, because if you focus on it intensely. This is why obviously guided meditation is a bit easier, because they'll walk you through it. If there are thoughts and things creeping into your mind, is to kind of park them and kind of let them, either the negative, obviously let them fly away, or to disperse. Obviously, something that you need to remember. It's not ideal, and it's happened to me occasionally, and it obviously allows you to focus on the present moment, be it to do with job stress. Obviously steals the breath away, as it discussed, and it allows you to be, I'm going to use a quote from Kung Fu Panda of, the present is what it is, it's a gift. It's if we're too focused on the future, or we're too focused on what's been, we're not living in the here and now. And obviously we can't, we'd like to think that we can control the future, but if we're not present in the here and now, we can't affect it in a positive way. And if we're focused on what yesterday was, it's history, it's happened, you can't change it. Number 8 is having a positive outlook. It gives you better memory at work. So if you looked at things in don't have to be a positive outlook, be it a solution-based approach, as here's a problem, here is solution A, B, C. There's infinite solutions, just pick one. That's a positive that's a positive outlook of I had a conversation with peers this morning of the fitness industry. Shoot first, aim later. You wouldn't think that the industry would be talking about that, but if you're always trying to aim, you're never going to fire. You're always looking for this perfect storm. So be it coaches have that dilemma as well, of that particular coach he wasn't doing anything, he was progressing. He's looking for, let me create all these things first before I put it out. So you're looking for things that to be, and I've been there as well, you're looking for everything to be ducks in a row before you do something. And obviously that's going to cause negative self-talk. It's going to cause self-doubt of, are people going to want this resource? You don't know until you ask. Plus, obviously, looking for opportunities in problems helps you scale. I'm not necessarily a career, but that is, if I was real with everybody, that's probably the outlook I had at the beginning of my sporting career. I wasn't afraid of the next rung on the ladder. It was, okay, I'm uncertain of what that looks like or what it's going to be, but I'd like to find out. So I wasn't pessimistic. My family is very pessimistic. We will problem solve in 100 degree to cover every eventuality. That is pessimistic, really, because you're covering all the negative bases as well. But obviously, the research backs having more of a positive look towards things. The brain scans of people who spent time outdoors show the prefrontal to convex, the grey. I don't want to go into too much of the science, but it obviously allows them to think clearer, to be able to have more of a presence, because the studies out there, hugging trees makes you feel better. Just getting out into the fresh air, it does no end the world of good. I'm not surprised that, depending on the age group of what we're watching, your parents saying to go outside. there's a core belief to that of obviously people that spend more time outside are not going. I can't remember the exact term of the grey matter. There's different. It affects the brain in different ways in terms of it's like scarring on the brain. So if you can get outside more, obviously you minimize the risk of that. And obviously when they do a brain scan, it's obviously after the person's dead and they chop it up. But I won't go into that too much. Social engagement. So being around other people, we've obviously know this all too well because of the last 2 years of the pandemic of being in isolation. We're not built for that as human beings. We're creatures of comfort. We want to be around other people. So it's one of those things that if you are self-isolating, it's gonna obviously increase the cognitive going down of being able to do things for yourself. And obviously if we look at it from a positive perspective, it obviously increases the grey matter in the brain. So it's important to avoid not just working in isolation. It's being a team player. It's going to come down to personality. Some people are intrinsic and some people are extrinsic. Some people are not fussed about being by themselves and they were absolutely fine being they probably would prefer it. But obviously if you're the external of that, which I'm somewhere in the middle, you need to obviously create. You don't have to necessarily go and see the person. It could be reaching out to somebody on Facebook. It could be reaching out to emailing somebody and just creating some sort of community that you checking in on somebody for argument's sake, just to make sure that they're all right. And obviously that's the social side of success. It's been proven that people that do things as a group have better success, be it with weight loss or any sort of success, because obviously they've got a collective that everybody is empowering each other, and obviously that has a knock-on effect on the brain becoming more active and you becoming more healthy. So if we move on to the next slide, please. These are just the additional resources to points through for 6 through 10. So if we move to the next one, obviously I talked about regular exercise beforehand, so we're going to go into it a little bit more. Obviously regular exercise can reduce anxiety, and this is a study that the Swedes did. It's jaw-dropping in terms of how much it can reduce anxiety. So by 60% is huge. And over a 21 period, they probably could prolong it and make it bigger. And obviously, with the data would obviously go up as well. And as a result of this, I could probably tell from personal experience of the anxiety. If I go back to 2018 of just going back to wheelchair basketball, to incorporate Pilates and to be more social, my anxiety obviously got less and less, and my confidence obviously got back to levels that it was before. So I could probably commend the study because I can speak from personal experience of incorporating regular exercise. For me, obviously, was at that particular time it was about 2 to 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be that. It could be whatever it could be going for a walk. It could be pushing the wheelchair, preferably outside. Whatever it's going to do, that you can do it routinely and consistently. That you're able to do it on a routine basis, and then go from there. So if we could go to the next slide, Nicole. Obviously, from my coaching perspective, I do things a little bit differently. You won't hear me talk about good or bad foods. I won't tell you what to ban, because obviously this is what's bad about the industry of just single out Weight Watchers and Slimming World. they focus on good and bad. So if I told you can't have something, you're gonna be like a kid, like a kid in a candy store. I want what's in that store, no matter what you tell me, James. And food is the same thing. So if I told you can't have any cookies, you can't have ice cream, you can't have something that you crave, that is exactly what you're going to crave. So it's giving you an approach that's going to be befitting of your lifestyle. So I wouldn't give you any exercises that I wouldn't do myself. So if we go to the next slide, please, Nicole. Obviously, I've gone away and created a specific amputee program. Obviously, it took me to be smacked in the face by it before I realized it. But it's built on those core principles, adapting, mastering, and obviously it's not improving, it's proving. It's proving to yourself and to other people that you're capable of doing that. So if you are struggling to constantly get fit and healthy and stay that way, that's where we've got to look to obviously adapt what you're doing, mastering your knowledge around diet, and I don't like to use the word diet, but nutrition. So it's something that you can obviously do, and it doesn't have any effect on your lifestyle, that you can't go out with friends and you'll be that person that you're always having a salad. Obviously, the aspect of, do I feel the fitness industry has left you behind? This is a conversation I have far too much of. It irritates me now to the point that it is true. I've been inside the industry of, I get all the disabled people, and I know that my colleagues are more than capable of doing it, and they probably could do with the experience to be able to deal with somebody different, because you wouldn't treat somebody that wants to lose weight the same way as if you wanted somebody that wanted muscle gain. It's a completely different conversation, and obviously the industry should do the same thing when it comes to obviously speaking to how you speak to somebody with limb loss and how you speak to somebody that's got limb difference will be slightly different as well. If you haven't figured out a realistic and efficient method of getting healthy without resorting to the latest fad, like some sort of robot, obviously that's my dark humor. And if any of the three above is something that you're going through, obviously you're in the right place when it comes to the AMP method. So if you move to the next slide, please. When we look at the nutrition now, and obviously some of these steps will not be applicable to some people, and obviously if you're at the beginning stage of looking to have an amputation, or you're in one of the demographics of diabetes or health conditions, obviously this would apply to you. This is an equation for both men and women. So you look at obviously calculating what your ideal body weight is. This is probably goal setting as well. So this is relatable to everybody. Everybody has a specific goal target that they want to hit when it comes to the weight. It might not necessarily be that. It might be their appearance, but this is more goal orientated. So if we go to the next slide. Obviously, step 2 is goal orientated. Again, it's looking at the amount that you're going to lose after amputation. So losing an arm and leg is going to be some substantial weight. And then calculating the remaining body weight after post-surgery. So if we move to the next one, please. Obviously, calculating the ideal body weight post-amputation. This you could probably apply. Well, this applies to everybody now, because obviously it would be the here and now of what specific shape do you want to look like, and this is probably where goal setting is very ideal, because it gives you a future if you don't particularly have one. As this is what I'd like to look like. This is how I'd like to feel. This is how I would like to be around people, and obviously that's confidence. It's building self-esteem and building self-confidence. Step 5 is obviously looking at physical activity based on your activity level. So obviously different between male and female, and obviously without going into the science of what constitutes physical activity, it's based on parameters between being obviously sedentary, not doing anything, to being very highly active, and those are the skews between one 1 to 1.448 for males and 1 to 1.45. So, and then there's obviously degrees on based on different BMIs and all sorts. So if you want to know more about that, obviously get in touch. So if we go to the next one, we go to step 6. So it's calculating how many calories you need to consume to reach your goal. This is very difficult. This is information it used to be very easy to come by. It used to be a PDF spreadsheet that another amputee fitness coach gave me about 5-6 years ago. I couldn't find it, so I don't know where it's gone. This is a Swedish company that's come up with this. So this would differ than, say, the equations that if you would put in for the ordinary person on the street. So these are amputee specific. And obviously, them being specific, it will come into play of the missing limb as well, of bringing into play your age, your weight. Obviously, it's in kilos, so there's a slight different equation for pounds, and then you'd obviously input that in, and that's what you would do for how many calories you're at now as an amputee. If we move to the next one, please. If I give a summary of this webinar today, is achieving a positive mind is a process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take baby steps. There's going to be obviously some setbacks along the way, but it's embracing that as a learning process. It's I'm going to steal the quote that's behind me. You win some things and some things you learn from. It's remembering there is no winning and losing. It's to try and look at it from a positive outcome, to embrace it moving forward. Of there's gonna be little small hiccups along the way with any learning thing that you haven't accomplished. You can go from there, and obviously it's consistently doing the repetitions. Remember, it's important to establish a healthy lifestyle to stay on track to achieve your goals and to thrive after limb loss and limb difference. There's a great value in receiving support from medical care teams, coaches, peers, etc. Because obviously what you don't know. So you got to disattach yourself from maybe a belief you had in school of I've learned everything I need to know, I know best. Of if you can learn from somebody from their past mistakes, it is a blessing in disguise, in my opinion. And this is obviously, everybody have probably heard of this one. Vini Vini Vici is supposedly Julius Caesar quote. I came, I saw, I conquered. So it's looking at mental health of there's more and more people going to struggle with it because of the world that we live in. It's a social media one. It to be of comparison, of competition, and obviously if you're criticizing yourself on the daily, you're undoing some of the work that you might have already had. Obviously, if you've never come from a positive environment, it's probably 10 times worse because that's your normal. But obviously, it's looking at it as it's not something to conquer. It's something to embrace. Obviously, some people can come off medication. Some people may not be able to. Some people may not need medication. It's each journey. In my opinion, there's no wrong, there's no right. It's your journey and it's your life. And this is the ways in which you can get in touch with me. So be it email, Facebook, pretty much sort of social media, your heart's your content, you can get in touch with me. I'll do my best to respond as quickly as I can. And obviously if I haven't, bear with me. And obviously the Amputee Coalition's website there, and obviously their contact information.
Thank you so much, James. You are clearly an expert. I appreciate you spending time to share your vulnerable story and tying in your mental health struggles with your athletic achievements. I think that you did an amazing job relating to the needs of the community. I have personally appreciated our conversations while we were collaborating on this webinar, just being able to share open and real life struggles with mental health, and just knowing that the day and age that we live in, it's more important now that we start talking about it and embracing it, because many people are struggling, and the more that we can outwardly speak about it, the more that we can provide the resources and the access to people who also share in the same struggles. So thank you so much for sharing so much relevant information. This will be a recording that'll be posted on our webinars webpage. It'll also be posted on YouTube for additional viewings. So anybody that would like to get in touch with James, we'll make sure to have the contact information, in addition to the ways that you can reach out to the Amputee Coalition to receive resources relating to mental health, or just resources in your local, state, or national needs, as well as connecting with the peer support department to talk to one of our volunteers or get connected with a support group. So thank you, everyone. And thank you again to James for spending your evening with us during the lunchtime hour of this webinar. Thanks so much, everyone.